Hey guys, it's Communications, and hopefully everybody's having a good Easter. Anyway, decided to, watch another fantasy movie. This time I watched a made-for-TV movie called The Archer, Fugitive from the Empire. Now, I've heard about this film, I remember seeing the trailer before. I was like, I don't know, it doesn't really sound that great. And to be honest, it's not like it was really that great of a movie. But as TV movies go, it was pretty decent. I was surprised by how watchable the movie was. It wasn't a complete total waste of my time, but is it really a good movie? I really wouldn't say that. But anyway, the film is an interesting movie. I mean, it's got some really imaginative ideas, but they're not necessarily as well executed as they could be. I mean, this film probably would be a lot better if it wasn't a TV movie, if it wasn't a pilot for a failed pilot for a failed TV series, If it was just like its own standalone movie, had a little bit more money to use to spend, on effects and some and maybe some actors, it might be a pretty decent fantasy. It might be one of the better fantasy films. But as it stands, it's an interesting sort of misfire. Because it's not really a movie that I could probably say that I'd watch all the time, but I'd say that, for what it was efficiently entertaining for the time being. But that was, as the film got, as it basically got further along in its plot, because it started out, it was pretty painful with George Kennedy's really over the top acting. But anyway, the film is directed as a TV movie. It was meant to be a TV show. They were trying to make it, they're trying to get, it was released by Universal, and it was produced by Mad Dog Productions. It's a pretty crazy movie, so that's definitely a fitting title for the production company. It's directed by Nicholas Corea. Stars Lane Caudell as the main hero of the piece, the archer Toran. And Lane Caudell, there are moments he's okay. I think he starts getting more comfortable with his performance, with his acting and his performance and his role as the film goes along. Because in the beginning, it felt kind of forced. His acting felt forced and a little bit just bland. But he's not really the greatest actor. Like I said, he's more of like an uneven performance. Belinda Bauer plays Estra, who's the daughter of a murdered sorceress who wants to get revenge. Along the way, she meets up with Toran, and they have a little bit of a love sort of relationship, sort of budding, relationship going on with each other. I like Belinda Bauer. She was sufficiently sexy, and I thought her performance was decent. Victor Campos plays Slant, who is this thief who's a friend of theirs, and he hangs out with them. And I liked Victor Campos. He had a nice little bit of enthusiasm, and it was definitely a fun sort of character. Reminded me of the character Subutai a little bit. So reminded me a little bit of Subutai from Conan the Barbarian. The villain of the piece is played by Kabir Bedi, who plays a villain named Gar the Draikian. He's basically the leader of this group of snake people in this other version. They call it the Empire. And the snake people are some decent makeup effects. For a TV movie, some pretty decent makeup effects on the snake people. Although they don't really say anything, which is to be understandable, but then the snakes do, the leader of the snakes people, like the right-hand man to Gar, he laughs. And when he laughs, he sounds like that dog in Wacky Races. I don't know what its name is, but I just remember that dog, That's exactly what the snake guy sounds like. So it's hard to take him seriously because he sounds like the dog from Wacky Races. So it's kind of like, yeah. If you don't know what Wacky Races was a cartoon back in the day, dealing with all these different, it's like a race around the world. There's some people in a car, some people on a plane. I just remember, I remember the show, watching it like on Cartoon Network growing up. Then you have George Inez as Marc. Marc Alaimo as Sandros. Sandros is basically this guy who is, I think he's a brother. I think he's definitely a blood relative of George Kennedy's character Brackus, who becomes king in the beginning of the movie. Marc Alaimo Sandros He wants power. He basically betrays George Kennedy and his own nation, and to basically team up with Gar and the Snake People, and, because he thinks he's going to get a nice little reward for it, and he sets it up so George Kennedy's character gets killed. It's like a trap, but he basically frames Toran for killing his own father. And so then George Kennedy's last dying words are basically to tell his son to go look for Lazar-Sa, some sorcerer who's, I guess, part of their family who might be able to help him. And that's basically just the plot. He goes off looking for Lazar-Sa, and Mac is it's pronounced Mock, I think. It's pronounced Mock, which has nothing to do with rock and roll. But George Inez is Mock, who's basically the older mentor for Toran. I like George Inez. I thought he did a good job. So some of these actors in this were pretty solid. Kabir Bedi, I thought, was a decent villain. Decent performance as a bad guy. Victor Campos, I have fun with. Belinda Bauer was alright. At moments, though, she seemed a little bit wooden. Caudell, pretty much a wooden guy, but he has the look of, a sword and sorcery sort of fantasy hero. So he has that down. And Marc Alaimo was good, basically just a good sniveling, jerk, because he basically portrays his whole group, his whole clan, and he ends up getting it, in the end, though, because, of course, Gar isn't going to, give him what he wants. He kills him. So, and George Kennedy is Brackus, though. George Kennedy was so over the top in this movie. In the beginning of the film, I was kind of losing interest in the movie just because of George Kennedy's over-the-top performance. It was so over the top, it was laughable. It was just bad. It was just terrible. Awful. The movie is a slow starter. That's all I got to say. It's a pretty slow starter. First 30 minutes or so are kind of tough sledding. As soon as it gets into sort of the plot, trying to look for as soon as Mock dies and Toran gets the Heartbow and starts, using it, it gets a little bit sort of interesting as the film goes along. But I really wouldn't recommend The Archer. I'm not going to be... unless it sounds curious. If it sounds interesting to you, go ahead and check it out. But I'm not going to, suggest paying the ridiculous prices, that it costs on VHS. Because it's really expensive. But it is on VHD, so I'll put a link in here just in case you guys want to check it out. Anybody, is wanting to. But it's an interesting oddity, this movie. So, it really starts getting interesting for me when Taran ends up basically and that's before Mock dies. He encounters the sorceress. He encounters Belinda Bauer. He goes in. He's trying to look for this cat to kill and give to his dad for his crowning ceremony. And he runs into this cursed land, I guess, where this sorceress lady was killed by one of Taran's relatives, Lazarus-Sa. He killed the sorceress. And I guess the sorcerer's daughter is still alive, played by Belinda Bauer. She lives in the cave, I guess. It's like a hidden underground sort of fortress sort of thing inside a tree. And so it's like a grave. So she lives there with her dead mother. I don't know. Sorceress stuff. And basically, she's got this guardian of the tomb, which is this pretty kind of crappy looking monster. Really kind of, those really top-heavy looking monsters you saw back in the day with the giant big head, with glowing eyes and shit. And basically, Toran gets saved from I kind of call it the turd burglar, because it looks like a turd. They look like a turd with teeth and glowing eyes, and like, roar. She shoots. Mock saves Toran, shoots it with a Heartbow. And the Heartbow, like, as soon as anything hits it, it like explodes, but for some reason there's some things about this show, this movie, I don't like the idea that every time the Heartbow is used, I just gotta have, like, I don't know, the whole picture turns negative, and it's like a red negative color. Like, boom, now we're gonna have red negative colors. And you're like, this is really kind of distracting and hard on the eyes. And it just doesn't really add anything. And there's also too much slow-mo in the fight scenes in this show. And I want to call it a show, but it's really a TV movie. So there's too many slow-mo with the fight scenes in this TV movie. I don't think slow-mo in a sword fight works. It just doesn't. Slow-mo doesn't work either when you're shooting an arrow and then it explodes. It just makes it look silly. So slow-mo I don't really care for, and you know, there's overuses of slow-mo in this TV movie. But the ideas are good. I like the idea of the sorceress, Belinda Bauer, the daughter of a sorceress, trying to go get revenge on her mother's, you know, killer. But at the same time, she runs into Taryn. They kind of get in sort of a relationship together. They have to sort of let bygones be bygones, and, you know, try to find Lazar-Sa together, and, you know, for better or worse. And there's some decent chemistry between the two, Belinda Bauer and Caudell. I like when Caudell meets up with the smuggler guy, Victor Campos, who plays Slant, who's this, you know, basically this gambler, you know, smuggler type. I liked the villain. I think Gar is a decent sort of performance. A lot of people might think it's pretty bad, but, you know, for what it is, it's a TV movie. Since it is a TV movie, I have to honestly give it a little bit more of the benefit of the doubt, because a TV movie doesn't have nearly as big of a budget as even the lowest, probably low budget movie at that time. So it's basically just a really low budget film, and for its low budget, managed to do a lot of imaginative ideas. I like the Heartbow. The Heartbow, even though it sounds kind of gay, the Heartbow. I like the idea, because what happens is the wielder of the Heartbow becomes one with the Heartbow. So basically, it's like a rite of passage. You grab the Heartbow, and it like basically tattoos this arrow on your chest, and you're one with the Heartbow. And, you know, it basically, you're the only one that can wield it. Anybody else who tries to wield it basically gets fried for their trouble. So, and it's cool. You know, the bow, you know, shoots arrows and they explode. You know, it's kind of cool. But I mean, but you know, and I like the idea later in the film with Lazar-Sa, who you think Lazar-Sa is, and it's you think it's this guy rolling around in a chariot with this metal mask, and he's throwing spears that, you know, basically have fire on them that just blow shit up. And the costume design of what Lazar-Sa, what you think is Lazar-Sa running around the chariot, is pretty well done. In fact, the costume design all the way around is pretty well done for this TV movie. You know, and I like the idea later in the film when you find out that you know, the one that's throwing the spears isn't really Lazar-Sa. It's actually a mechanical creation by one of Lazar-Sa's apprentices, and he's getting revenge on this town where basically he was working as a miner, and he got scarred, horribly scarred. And you see his horribly scarred face, and it's not the greatest makeup effect, but it's in 1981, so it's pretty decent. So he's got his skull is showing on the left side of his face, and he has no eyes, so he's like a metal eye patch. And he's wearing this kind of cool skull mask to cover it up. And so basically what happens is this mechanical thing that he's created, it gets its power from this glove. No, it's not the power glove. There's a power from this glove, which is like reminds me sort of the Infinity Gauntlet from the Marvel Comics, you know, series. And then you also get some more power from this diamond. So I kind of like that idea, you know, like there's a lot of imaginative ideas in this TV movie. And, you know, when Belinda Bauer, so you have Taryn, you have the sorceress, you have the thief. They go in and they go to try to find Lazar-Sa, they say that he's located in like the mountains near Endworld. And so they go through this, like, you know, yellow fog, and they end up in this sort of world where it's all, you know, got basically, basically dry ice and fog everywhere. But the idea is that there's like zombies and stuff, like, you know, not really like zombies, because it's like a TV movie, but they're dead people, you know, they're reanimated people that come out from the fog and attack them, and Taryn shoots them with his bow. So there's a lot of sort of cool stuff, you know, and they end up escaping from that, and then they end up running into what they think is Lazar-Sa, the guy with the spears, and at the same time, Gar and his minions, the snake people, they trail them into the mountains as well, and they end up fighting, you know, Gar and his snake people end up fighting the, you know, zombies as well. And then Gar ends up, basically what happens is Taryn shoots the diamond, which then makes the basically makes the mechanical creation by the apprentice just basically blow up. Then they find out that it's the apprentice who created the creation, and they find out the glove has the power. The apprentice tries to put on the glove, but he can't handle it because I guess he says he's not evil enough. So then Gar gets a handle of the glove, and then you get like the only sort of non-slow-mo fight scene, sword fight with all three of the. It was pretty decent choreographed. I mean, to be honest, between the three, Taran, the sorceress, and the thief, doing a little sword fight, so to speak, with the rest of them. Gar goes after Taran with his axe, because earlier Taran shot him with a Heartbow right in the arm and basically made his right arm useless. So now he's like going to get revenge, and he's going out of one arm with an axe. He puts on the glove, so I got the power glove, and I got one arm. I'm gonna kill you. It's pretty lame because it really isn't much of a match. He gets his axe stuck in a rock. And then, like, Taran shoots the... basically what happens is the apprentice of Lazarus Saw, he basically decided to meld his spirit with the diamond, and so it makes it go out of control, and then the diamond basically blows up and takes Gar with it, so you think. And the sorceress and the thief and Taran all end up escaping, getting away, they escape the explosion, they're in one piece. And then at the end of the movie is basically they find out the Lazarus Saw could still be alive, but he's at this other place. So they're gonna go. The sorceress lady gets on her horse and gets ready to go there, and basically it's insinuated that Taran and the thief guy will follow her, and they will go try to find Lazarus Saw and try to explain, basically learn, I guess, the magical secrets of Lazarus Saw or something. But I could definitely see why it didn't get picked up, because for one, I think it's a low budget, but I'd have to say with the way some of the effects looked and the way some of the costume design and the makeup effects and the visual effects, because there was a pretty decent visual effect when Marc transfers basically his Heartbow, his spirit, I guess, into the Heartbow, which then transfers itself into Taran. That was a pretty decent visual effect for the time. So I would probably say that they had, it was probably a little bit higher budget than the normal, for example, like Land of the Lost. So, budget constraints probably, and also it was just going to be hard to sell for audiences. So it was better as it was as a TV movie. And to be honest with you, I would kind of be interested to see a sequel, another TV movie, because they did the same for Captain America, the 70s Captain America, and the first one was lame, and then they made a second one. So if they're going to make a sequel to a lame TV movie, then they could have made a sequel to The Archer, which was not as lame. But I mean, it's not a great movie by any means. I mean, the first half was really slow. I found myself finding the hawk that was flying around a lot more entertaining than the goings on early on in the movie. But as soon as Taran gets a Heartbow, as soon as he meets up with, the thief guy, and as soon as he and the sorceress up, and Gar and his snake people are after him, then it sort of picks up a little bit. But it's a slow-paced movie. It's not particularly memorable, but there's a lot of interesting sort of things about it. I think it would have been interesting to see, another sort of continuation of a TV movie, like this movie, but, I guess like a sequel, but with like a bigger budget. But I think where the film kind of fails a little bit is because, it's not really that action-packed. I mean, the access to the Heartbow, it's really kind of cheapened with the fact that they have to do that negative shots, the red or blue or negative shots. It just looks bad in my opinion. The slow-mo doesn't help. The lead, Caudell, he does the best he can, but he's not really that great. So you don't really have a charismatic lead, so that doesn't really help it doesn't help the movie. If it was going to be a show, it doesn't help the show either. But, I've seen a lot worse fantasy movies. I mean, it's kind of sad that the acting in this was kind of a little bit better than Hawk the Slayer. I thought Caudell wasn't as uncharismatic as John Terry in Hawk the Slayer. I think he had some moments that had some charisma, but there wasn't very many of them, but there were some. But I mean, all in all, I really don't know what to say about The Archer, Fugitive from the Empire. Interesting ideas, decent sort of, decent effects. I like the makeup effects. The score wasn't really very good. The action sequences were pretty lackluster, but it is a TV movie, so I have to kind of put that in regard. But all in all, it was a watchable time waster for me. I don't know if I'd watch it over and over again, but I was surprised by how decent, it was, but it's not a great movie by any stretch of the imagination. So I guess, I really don't know what else to say, except I was going to rate The Archer, Fugitive from the Empire, which is also known in an alternate title as The Archer and the Sorceress. I'm going to rate it out of 5 stars. I'd probably give it 2, maybe 2.5, but I think I'd give it 2. 2 sounds pretty bad, but it's because it's a slow-paced film. There's some good things about it, but all in all, it's not a movie I want to sit down and watch again. So it's a TV movie. I don't necessarily care for TV movies that much, but it was one of the better ones I saw, but that's not really saying much. And it's just, all in all, there are a lot better fantasy films out there than The Archer. So, I mean Conan, Sword and the Sorcerer. I enjoyed Hawk the Slayer a little bit more than The Archer, because there were moments in this film where I kind of just felt it was tough sledding for me. But either way, it was a time waster. It was watchable for the time being, so hence the word time waster. But I really wouldn't necessarily recommend it to anybody. But anyway, folks, thanks for watching my review of The Archer, Fugitive of the Empire, and I will see you guys later. See you.
Without your 5 clans as part of my alliance, the Draikian dynasty will eat us all.
Oscar winner and airport movie perennial George Kennedy played King Brachus, father of young Prince Turan in The Archer, Fugitive from the Empire.
Find Lazar-Sa.
When Brachus is killed, the young prince is forced to flee his mystical empire when the vile, power-hungry Gar, the Destroyer, frames him for the crime. Turan, brandishing his magical bow and arrow, wanders the world accompanied by Slant the Gambler and Estra the sensuous enchantress, in search of the wizard who can give him his throne before the monstrous forces of Gar entrap them. Or something like that.